Hello, my friend. If you are listening to me right now, I want you to know something. You are safe. You can put down everything you have been carrying today, the worries, the thoughts, the lists of things you still need to do. You can put them all down right here by your bed. They will still be there in the morning if you need them. But for now, for tonight, you do not need them. Tonight, you only need to rest. I am going to tell you a story tonight. A long story. A very old story. A story that was written more than 100 years ago by a quiet English woman in a small house in the countryside. A story that has been read and loved and remembered by children and old people and everyone in between for over 100 years. It is the story of a small angry girl and a small angry boy and a hidden garden behind a locked door in the middle of a great wild moor in the north of England. It is a story about being lonely. It is a story about being kind. It is a story about how something that has been left alone for a very long time in the dark can slowly, gently come back to life. Whether it is a garden or a child or a heart. You may have heard this story before. Maybe when you were small. Maybe in a film. Maybe in a book on a quiet, rainy afternoon. That is all right. Stories like this are meant to be heard again. They are like old songs. Each time you hear them, you understand them a little differently. Each time, you find something new. Tonight, I will tell it to you slowly. So slowly. There will be long pauses. There will be quiet moments. There will be parts where nothing very exciting happens, where you can rest and let your mind float. If you fall asleep somewhere in the middle, that is perfect. That is what I am hoping for. That is, in fact, the whole point. The story will be here, waiting for you. You can come back to it tomorrow night, if you like, or the night after that, or the night after that. There is no hurry. There is never any hurry here. Before I begin, my friend, I would like to ask you a small thing. A very small thing. If this voice has been a comfort to you on this night or on other nights, please tap the little red button at the bottom of your screen, the subscribe button, just once, gently, as you might tap the head of a sleeping cat, soft, quiet, almost without thinking about it. That is how the next story finds you. That is how, on some other long night when you need a voice in the dark, I will be able to be here for you again. And if you have a moment, tap the small heart too. The like button. It is a quiet way of saying, I am here. I am listening. Thank you. You do not have to do anything else. You can close your eyes now. You can let your hands rest. You can let the small button tapping be the last thing you do tonight, before the long, long story begins, and before the deep, peaceful sleep begins with you. I will wait while you do it. I will wait gently. Take your time. Good. Thank you, my friend. Now, let me tell you the story. Let me take you, in your mind, to a long time ago, to a place called India, where the air was hot and the sky was bright and the colors of the flowers were so bright they almost hurt to look at. And let me introduce you to a very small girl who did not, at the start of this story, know how to love anyone, including herself. Her name was Mary. When Mary Lennox was sent to her uncle's house in England, the people who met her said she was the most disagreeable-looking child they had ever seen. That was not entirely her fault. Mary had grown up in India, in a great big house, full of servants. Her father had been a busy man who worked for the English government. He had been kind, but he had not been home very much. Her mother had been beautiful, with long golden hair and pale skin and bright laughing eyes. But her mother had not been kind. Her mother had not wanted a child. Her mother had spent her days going to parties and her nights dancing with handsome officers, and she had never, not once, picked Mary up and held her in her arms. Mary had been given to an Indian nurse called an ayah when she was a tiny baby. The ayah had cared for her, but the ayah had been told by Mary's mother to keep the child out of the way, to keep her quiet, to keep her out of sight. So Mary had grown up alone. She had no brothers, no sisters, no friends. She did not know how to play with other children. She did not know how to share. She did not know how to laugh, or how to ask, or how to give. She did not know how to do anything, in fact, except be cross. By the time Mary was 9 years old, she was a small, thin, yellow-faced child. Her hair was thin and yellow. Her face was thin and yellow. Her temper was sharp, and her mouth was always turned down at the corners. The servants in her father's big house in India whispered about her when she was not listening. They called her the cross little Mem Sahib. They said she was the most disagreeable child they had ever served. She did not know they said this, but if she had known, she would not have cared. She did not care about anything or anyone. She did not even care very much about her own mother and father. This was just the way she was. Then, one summer, something terrible happened. There was a sickness in India, a great sickness. It was called cholera. It moved like a dark wind through the houses of the English families. It killed the children. It killed the mothers. It killed the fathers. It killed the servants. It killed quickly and quietly and without warning. The sickness came to Mary's house one warm morning. Mary did not know what was happening. At first, she was sitting on the veranda watching a small lizard sun itself on a stone when she noticed that the house had gone very, very quiet. There were no servants moving in the halls. There were no voices from the kitchen. There was no music from her mother's rooms. The whole house felt strange, like a great, empty shell. Mary stood up. She walked into the house. She wandered through the rooms. There was no one there. She wandered into the dining room. The table was set for breakfast, but no one had come to eat. The food sat on the plates, cold. She wandered into her mother's beautiful sitting room, empty. She wandered into the kitchens, empty. The whole house was empty. Mary was not frightened. She was not the kind of child who got frightened easily. She was just confused. She sat down on a small chair in the hallway. She wondered what she should do. Where had everyone gone? Why had nobody told her? She waited. Hours passed. Finally, in the late afternoon, 2 English officers came into the house. They walked through the rooms, looking. They were calling out names. Mary heard them. She did not move. She did not call out. She just sat, very small, in her chair. One of the officers turned a corner and saw her sitting there. "Good heavens," he said. "A child!" He stared at Mary. Mary stared back at him. "Did no one know there was a child here?" He said half to himself. "I am Mary Lennox," Mary said in her stiff little voice. "I fell asleep when everyone had the cholera, and I have only just now waked up. Why does nobody come?" The officer's face changed. He looked at her with the saddest look Mary had ever seen on anyone's face. "Poor little child," he said. "There is nobody left to come." Mary did not understand at first. The officer explained it to her gently. The sickness had come in the night. It had taken Mary's mother. It had taken Mary's father. It had taken her ayah. It had taken all the other servants who had not run away in fear. She was the only one left. Mary heard the words. They went into her ears, and they sat there, and they did not quite make sense yet. Her mother and father were dead. She was alone. She did not cry. She did not feel anything. She just stood there with her small, thin, yellow face, and she watched the officer talk, and she nodded when he asked her if she understood. She did not understand. Not really. She had not loved her mother and father very much because they had not loved her very much. So their being gone did not feel, to her, the way it would have felt to a child who had been hugged every night and read to and tucked into bed with a kiss. It felt strange, but it did not feel sad. The officers took Mary away. They wrapped her in a soft blanket. They carried her to another English house, where a kind clergyman and his wife were caring for several other children who had lost their parents to the sickness. The clergyman's wife tried to be kind to Mary, but Mary was a difficult child. She did not say thank you. She did not eat the food that was put in front of her. She did not play with the other children. She just sat in a corner, looking cross, until everyone in the house was tired of her. After a few weeks, the clergyman's wife wrote a letter to England. She wrote to a man named Mr. Archibald Craven. He was Mary's uncle. He was the brother of Mary's mother. He lived in a great old house called Misselthwaite Manor in the north of England. He was Mary's only living relative. The letter was sent. A few months later, the answer came. Mr. Craven would take Mary in. He did not seem very happy about it, but there was no one else. And so, in the autumn of that year, a small, thin, yellow-faced, cross-looking little girl was put on a great ship and sent across the ocean, all by herself, to a country she had never seen before, to a house she had never seen before, to an uncle she had never met. To begin, although she did not know it yet, the most important journey of her whole life. The journey across the ocean was long. Mary was put in the care of an officer's wife who was going home to England and who agreed to look after the little girl for the journey. The officer's wife tried to be kind, but Mary did not make it easy. Mary did not make friends with the other children on the ship. Mary did not look out the windows at the great gray rolling sea. Mary did not eat the cakes that were given to her at tea time. Mary just sat. She sat and looked cross. The officer's wife was very relieved when, at last, the ship arrived in England. She handed Mary over at the train station to a stiff-looking woman in black who had come from Mr. Craven's house to fetch her. "Goodbye, Mary," said the officer's wife. "I hope you will be happy at Misselthwaite Manor." Mary did not say goodbye. She did not say thank you. She just looked away. The stiff woman in black, whose name was Mrs. Medlock, watched all of this. Mrs. Medlock was Mr. Craven's housekeeper. She was a sensible, practical, sharp-tongued woman who would run his great them years. She had been told to fetch Mary from London, and she had not been looking forward to it. She had thought the child would probably be spoiled and difficult and rude. She saw that she had been right. "Well," said Mrs. Medlock, looking down at Mary, "you are a queer little piece, are you not?" Mary did not answer. Mrs. Medlock sighed. "Come along then. We have a long train ride ahead, and then a long carriage ride after that. Misselthwaite is a long way from any train station. It sits all alone on the edge of the moor." Mary did not know what a moor was. She followed Mrs. Medlock onto the train. They sat across from each other in a small private compartment. Mrs. Medlock had a basket of food. She offered some to Mary. Mary did not take any. Mrs. Medlock began to talk. She talked about Misselthwaite Manor. She did not seem to know that this was supposed to be a happy story for a child arriving at her new home. She just told Mary the facts. "The manor is a great old house," Mrs. Medlock said. 600 years old, maybe older. It has nearly 100 rooms, but most of them are locked up. Mr. Craven does not use most of them. He does not like noise. He does not like people. He spends most of his time traveling. He is rarely at home. Mary listened, though she pretended not to. "You must not expect to see your uncle very often," Mrs. Medlock went on. "He does not like children. He does not like much of anything, really. He has been very sad for many years. His wife died, you see, about 10 years ago. She was beautiful. She was the only thing in the world he loved. When she died, something in him died too. He has been a strange, lonely man ever since." Mary tried not to look interested, but she was a little interested. "You must not run about the house," Mrs. Medlock continued. "You must not poke into rooms that are not yours. You must not ask too many questions. You will have your meals brought to you. You will have your own room. You will be expected to amuse yourself." "I have always amused myself," Mary said coldly. Mrs. Medlock looked at her. "I dare say you have, miss. I dare say you have." The train rolled on for hours and hours. Outside the window, the landscape of England rolled past. Mary did not look at it. She did not care about it. She fell asleep eventually with her head against the window of the train. When she woke up, it was night. The train had stopped at a small station. Mrs. Medlock was shaking her shoulder. "Come along, miss. We are here. The carriage is waiting." Mary climbed down from the train, half asleep, into a cold, damp English night. The air was so different from India. In India, the air had always been warm, heavy, full of the smells of dust and spices and flowers. Here, the air was cold, light, empty. It smelled of wet grass and stones and something else, something wild, something that Mary could not name. A small black carriage was waiting at the station. The driver helped Mary climb inside. Mrs. Medlock climbed in after her. The carriage began to move. For the first hour, they drove through small villages and along quiet country roads. Mary could see through the carriage window small stone houses with smoke coming from their chimneys. She could see the moon, full and silver, shining on the wet road. Then, after the last village, the road began to climb. It climbed up a hill, up and up. And as they came over the top of the hill, Mary suddenly saw something that took her breath away. The moor. Stretching out in front of them as far as Mary could see was a great wide land that was not like anything she had ever seen. It was empty. It was wild. It was dark. It rolled in low hills and small valleys in every direction. There were no houses. There were no trees, almost. There was no light. Just the dark, dark land, and the great silver moon above it, and the small white road winding through it. In some places, the moor was covered with low, dark plants. In other places, there were rocks. In other places, there was only black grass, blowing in the cold wind. Mary stared. "What is this?" she whispered, in spite of herself. "That is the moor," said Mrs. Medlock. "Yorkshire moor. Miles and miles of it. We will be driving across it for another hour." The carriage drove on, deeper into the great dark land. The wind blew. It was a strong, low wind. It made a strange, whispering, sighing sound as it moved across the moor. It sounded almost like a person, like a voice, like someone trying to speak. Mary listened. She could not say why, but the moor made her feel something she had never felt before. It made her feel small. In India, Mary had always felt important. The servants had bowed to her. The garden had been planted for her. The food had been cooked for her. But here, in front of this great dark wild land, she felt very, very small. The moor did not know who she was. The moor did not care. The moor had been here, like this, for thousands of years. She was just a little tired girl in a small black carriage, going somewhere she did not want to go, in the middle of a great empty land. She was not here the most important thing. It was a strange feeling, but for some reason, it was not entirely a bad feeling. The carriage drove on and on. After what felt like a very long time, Mary saw, far away, a single light. A small yellow light in the middle of the dark moor. "That is the house," said Mrs. Medlock. "That is Misselthwaite Manor." As they came closer, Mary saw a great dark shape rising up out of the moor. A vast, sprawling, old building with many roofs and many chimneys and many small windows. Most of the windows were dark. Only one or two showed a faint yellow light. The house looked, to Mary, like a great sleeping creature, a creature that had been sleeping for many, many years. The carriage stopped in front of a great wooden door. Mrs. Medlock climbed out and helped Mary down. The door swung open. A pale yellow light spilled out onto the stones. An old butler stood there, holding a candle. "You are very late," he said quietly. "The train was late," said Mrs. Medlock. "And then the carriage. Has Mr. Craven returned from his travels?" "No," said the butler. "Not yet." "Then the child is to be put to bed." Mary walked into the great house. The hall was enormous. The ceiling was so high she could not see the top of it in the dim candlelight. There were paintings on the walls. Great dark paintings of people from long, long ago. Mrs. Medlock led Mary up a wide, dark staircase. Their footsteps echoed. They walked down a long, long corridor, past door after door, all closed. At last, Mrs. Medlock stopped at one of the doors. She opened it. Inside was a small, simple bedroom. There was a fire in the fireplace. There was a small bed with white sheets. There was a small table with bread and milk on it. "This is your room," said Mrs. Medlock. "You will sleep here. There is your food. Eat it or do not eat it, as you please. I will see you in the morning. Good night." She closed the door. Mary was alone. She stood in the middle of the small room. She listened. The house was so quiet, so very, very quiet. She walked to the small table. She picked up a piece of bread. She bit into it, slowly. It was good bread, fresh, warm. She ate the bread. She drank the milk. She did not realize until then how hungry she had been. She took off her stiff travel clothes. She put on the small white nightgown that had been laid out on her bed. She climbed into the bed. The sheets were cold. The room was strange. The fire was small and quiet. Outside the small window, far away, she could hear the moor. The wind was still blowing. The strange, whispering, sighing sound was still there. It almost sounded now like someone breathing. Like someone old and tired, who had been breathing in this same slow, sighing way for thousands of years. Mary listened to it. She listened to it for a long, long time. And finally, in spite of the strange room and the strange house and the strange country and the strange wind, she fell asleep. The next morning, Mary was woken up by a young housemaid who had come into the room to light the fire. Mary opened her eyes and saw a round, rosy-cheeked young woman kneeling by the fireplace, scraping at the ashes. The young woman saw that Mary was awake. She said, "Thou'rt awake. That's a good thing. Thou hast slept a long time." It's near 8 o'clock. Mary did not understand half of what the young woman was saying. The young woman was speaking with a strong Yorkshire accent. The people of Yorkshire, in the north of England, speak in their own way. They say "tha" instead of "you." They say before sentences. They have their own warm, slow, sing-song way of speaking. Mary, who had grown up with proper English servants in India, had never heard anyone speak like this. "Who are you?" Mary said coldly. "I am Martha," said the young woman, looking up with a wide, friendly smile. "Martha Sowerby. I am to be your maid. I am to look after thee." "You do not speak properly," said Mary in her sharpest voice. "I cannot understand what you say." Martha laughed. She laughed. No one had ever laughed at Mary before. The servants in India had been frightened of Mary. They had jumped to do whatever she said. They had never laughed. Martha stood up. She put her hands on her hips. But I'll have to mind myself then," she said cheerfully. "I'll try to speak proper, but it's hard. Thou'll have to be patient." Mary did not know what to do with this young woman who laughed at her and was not afraid of her. She lay in the bed and watched Martha bustle around the room, opening the curtains, laying out clothes, humming a small Yorkshire tune. "Why are you doing all this?" Mary asked. "Why are you not waiting for me to ring for you?" Martha turned around. She looked surprised. "Ring for me?" she said. "What for?" "To dress me," said Mary. "To bring me my breakfast. To attend to me." Martha stared at her. "Thou canst dress thyself, surely," she said. "No," said Mary. "I have never dressed myself. My ayah always dressed me." Martha was so astonished she sat down on the edge of the bed. "Thou hast never dressed thyself?" she said. What a queer thing. When I was 4 years old, I dressed myself, and I dressed our Susan Ann too. There must be 6 or 7, surely." "I am 9, said Mary, with great dignity. "9, said Martha. "And thou canst not dress thyself, my eye?" She stood up. She walked over to the bed. She held out the clothes that were laid out for Mary. "Well, thou'll have to learn now," she said firmly. "Come on, I have other work to do. I cannot stand here dressing a 9-year-old. Come on, miss, up the gets." Mary was so shocked, she got out of bed without thinking. She stood there in her nightgown. and Martha helped her put on her clothes. Martha helped her, but Martha made her do most of it herself. Mary fumbled with the buttons. She did not know which way the petticoat went. She put her shoes on the wrong feet. But by the end of it, she was dressed. She had dressed herself. For the first time in her life, it felt strange. But it was not, perhaps, entirely a bad strange. Martha gave her a wide, warm smile. "There thou art," she said. "Thou'll be a clever lass soon, I can see." Mary did not know what to say to this. She had been called many things in her life. The cross little memsahib, a queer little piece, a spoiled child. She had never been called a clever lass. The words were strange, but they were warm, like a small piece of bread in her hand. Martha showed her where her breakfast was, in the small sitting room next to her bedroom. Porridge and bread and milk, and a small bowl of stewed apples. Mary sat down at the small table. She poked at the porridge with her spoon. "I do not like porridge," she said. Martha, who was making the bed in the next room, came in. "Why not?" she asked. "I just do not like it." But thou must eat it. Porridge is good for thou. It will make thee strong. Thou'rt a little stick of a thing. Thou needs feeding up." "I will not eat it." Martha looked at her hard. "In my mother's house," Martha said quietly, "there are 12 children, and if any of them sat down at a bowl of good hot porridge and would not eat it, my mother would not even argue with them. She would just take it away, and there would be nothing else to eat until the next meal." We learned, very fast, to eat what we were given. 12 children? Mary said. In spite of herself, she was a little curious. 12? Said Martha. I am the oldest of them. There is Susan Ann, who is 2 years younger than me. Then there is Phil. Then there is Dickon, who is 12. Then there is... Mary stopped listening to the names, but she was thinking about something. 12 children in one house. She had never met another child, except for the children at the clergyman's house in India, who she had not liked. She did not know what it would be like to have a brother or a sister, let alone 11 of them. She picked up her spoon. She ate a little of the porridge. It was not bad. It was, actually, quite good. She ate some more. Martha watched her with a small smile and went back to making the bed. After breakfast, Martha said, "Thou must go out and play." Mary stared at her. "Play?" she said. "Outside? Where?" "On the moor, in the gardens, anywhere. Thou cannot stay in the house all day, like a little plant in a dark cupboard. Thou must have fresh air. Thou must run about. Thou'rt so pale and thin, thou needs the air." "I do not want to play outside," said Mary. "I do not know how." Martha sighed. "Thou hast a lot to learn, miss." She took Mary by the hand. She walked her to the front door of the house. She wrapped her in a small, warm coat. She put a knit cap on her head. She pushed her, gently but firmly, out the door. "There," said Martha. "Go and play. Come back when thou'rt hungry." She shut the door. Mary stood alone on the great stone step in front of the great old house, with the cold Yorkshire wind blowing in her face. For a moment, she did not know what to do. She had never been simply sent outside, by herself, in her whole life. In India, she had always had her ayah, or a tutor, or a watcher. There had always been someone there, making sure she was safe. Here, there was no one. She was alone. For the first few minutes, she just stood there. Then, very slowly, she began to walk. The grounds of Misselthwaite Manor were enormous. There were great wide lawns. There were ancient trees, with branches like old arms reaching down to the ground. There were stone paths that wound through the gardens. There were ivy-covered walls that seemed to be everywhere, dividing the gardens into smaller and smaller spaces. Mary wandered. She did not know where she was going. She just walked. She walked past a great wide lawn. She walked past a small pond, where a few ducks were sitting. She walked through a stone arch and found herself in a quiet square garden where there were trees pruned into strange round shapes. It was autumn. Most of the flowers were gone. The trees were bare. The grass was thin. Everything looked sleepy and brown and quiet. Mary did not mind. She had nothing to compare it to. She walked through another arch and into another garden. This one had a small fountain in the middle, not running now. There were stone benches around it. She kept walking. She came to a stone wall, very tall, covered in thick old ivy. There was a wooden door in the wall. She tried the door. It was locked. She walked along the wall. She came to another door. It was also locked. This was odd. Why would gardens be locked up? She walked along the wall for a long time. The wall was so long and so high, and so completely covered in old twisted ivy that you could not see anything beyond it. She came at last to the end of the wall. There was an opening, and she walked through it into another small garden. Here, in this small garden, there was a man. He was an old man, very old. He was small and bent, and his face was the color of an old leather glove. He had a small white beard. He was working in the garden, digging at the cold black earth with a small spade. A small bird, a robin, was sitting on the handle of a tool nearby. The robin was watching the old man work. Mary stood and watched. The old man saw her. He did not stop working. "How do," he said in a slow Yorkshire voice. "Where does that come from?" Mary was getting used to the strange Yorkshire speech now. She understood him. "From India," she said. "India," said the old man. "Well, that's a long way. What are they doing here?" "I have come to live with my uncle, Mr. Craven." The old man stopped digging then. He looked at her hard. He said. "I see. Thart the little one from India that's come to stay." He looked her up and down. "Thart a peaky bit of a thing," he said. "Thaw looks like a bit of cabbage that's been left out in the cold." Mary did not know whether to be offended or not. She decided to be offended. "I am quite well, thank you," she said stiffly. The old man laughed, a short, dry, surprised laugh. "The sounds just like a little memsahib," he said, "like a duchess. Well, well." He went back to his digging. Mary watched. The robin watched. After a long moment, the robin hopped onto the old man's shoulder. The old man did not seem at all surprised by this. He nodded to the robin, as if greeting an old friend. "That's a fine bird," said Mary, in spite of herself. Said the old man. "He is a friend of mine. We've known each other for 2 years now. He flies down to chat with me every day." "Does he?" said Mary. He does. He's a clever bird. He's a robin. They are friendly little things, friendlier than most humans in my view." Mary looked at the robin. The robin tilted its small head and looked at her. Its small black eyes were bright and curious. It was, Mary thought suddenly, a very pretty bird. She had not thought before that any bird could be pretty, but this one was. "What is your name?" Mary asked the old man. "Ben," said the old man. "Ben Weatherstaff. I am the head gardener. I have been here 40 years, maybe longer. I have lost count." 40 years, Mary said. "You have been here 40 years? I knew the old master when he was a young man. I knew his wife, the mistress, when she was alive." Mary remembered what Mrs. Medlock had said about Mr. Craven's wife, about how she had died 10 years ago. She wanted to ask more, but she did not know how to ask. She just stood there, watching Ben Weatherstaff work, watching the robin hop about on his shoulder. After a while, she said, "Are all the gardens locked?" Ben Weatherstaff stopped his digging. He looked at her again. His face changed, just a little. "Not all of them," he said carefully. "Just one of them." "Which one?" Ben Weatherstaff said nothing for a moment. Then he picked up his spade. He started walking, slowly, away from her. "Never the mind which one," he said, over his shoulder. "It's locked, and that's all. Nobody goes in, nobody opens that door. Now run along, miss. I have work to do." He walked away. The robin flew off in another direction. Mary stood alone in the small garden, in the cold autumn wind, thinking. There was a garden, somewhere on the grounds. A garden that was locked. A garden that nobody went into. A garden that perhaps nobody had been into for a long, long time. She did not know why she felt so curious about it, but she did. She wanted, very much, to know which garden it was, and what was inside. For the next few days, Mary thought about the locked garden. She did not, at first, know what to do with her thoughts. She had never been very good at thinking. In India, she had not had to think about much. The servants did everything. The food appeared, the clothes appeared. The days went by, all the same. But here, on the great wild moor, in the great old house, there was nothing to do. There was no one to tell her what to do. So she began, slowly, to do things on her own. She started going outside every morning, after breakfast. It was the rule. Martha would not let her stay inside. "The must go out, miss," Martha said every morning, wrapping Mary in her warm coat. "Out into the air, out into the wind. The cheeks will get pink. They'll grow strong. They'll feel better. Out to go." And Mary went. She did not, at first, like the wind. The wind on the moor was strong. It was cold. It blew her hair into her eyes. It made her ears hurt. But after a few days, she stopped noticing the wind so much. She got used to it. The wind became, simply, the air she was breathing, the air of the moor. She walked through the gardens. She found new paths every day. She found a small grove of old trees, where the wind made a soft whoosh through the branches. She found a little stone bench, hidden behind a great bush, where she could sit and look out over the moor. She found, after several days of walking, the long ivy-covered wall that Ben Weatherstaff had not wanted to talk about. She walked all the way around it. It was the strangest wall. It was very high. It was very long. It was completely covered in old, thick, twisted ivy. The ivy had grown over the wall for so many years that you could not see the stones underneath. The wall looked, almost, like a living thing. A green living thing, made of leaves and old vines. There were 2 doors in the wall that Mary could find. Both of them were locked. Both of them had old metal locks, the keys long since lost. But there had to be another door, somewhere. A garden had to have a way in. Mary walked along the wall every day. She tried to find the 3rd door. She tapped on the ivy. She pulled the ivy aside in places to see what was underneath. She found nothing. She kept looking. One morning, she was walking along the wall when she heard a small, quick, fluttering sound. She looked up. The robin. The robin from Ben Weatherstaff's garden. The friendly robin. The one with the bright black eyes. It was sitting on top of the wall looking down at her. "Oh," said Mary, "it is you." The robin tilted its head. Mary had never spoken to a bird before. In India, she had ignored the birds. The bright birds, the small birds, the big birds, all of them. They had been part of the noise of India. She had not paid attention, but this small brown bird with the round body and the bright eye and the little orange chest was looking at her. It was paying attention to her. It was the first creature, since she had come to England, that seemed actually pleased to see her. "Hello, Robin," Mary said. The robin sang. A small, clear, beautiful song. It hopped along the top of the wall. It looked back at Mary as if to say, "Are you coming?" Mary, in spite of herself, followed. The robin hopped along the wall. Mary walked along the ground below it. They went on like this for 100 paces perhaps. Then the robin stopped. It flew down to the ground. It landed in a small patch of bare dirt in front of an old, knotty piece of ivy. It hopped about. It looked up at Mary and back at the dirt. Mary came closer. She knelt down. She looked at the dirt. The dirt was loose. Recently dug? Perhaps. Someone had been digging here recently. Perhaps a dog? Perhaps an animal? She looked closer. There was something in the dirt. A small piece of metal. A small, rusty, twisted piece of metal. Mary reached out her hand, slowly, and she pulled it out of the dirt. It was a key, an old, rusty key. It was so old that the metal had turned almost black. There were small bits of rust crumbling off it as Mary held it. It was about the length of her finger. It had a small ring at one end, where someone's finger could have hooked through it. And at the other end, the long part that went into a lock, there were small, intricate teeth. It looked very, very old. It looked, perhaps, as if it had been buried in this dirt for 10 years. Or longer. Mary held the key in her hand. She looked up at the wall. She looked at the ivy. She thought, very slowly, very carefully, this is a key to a garden door. And somewhere, in this great long wall, is the door that this key fits. She put the key in her pocket. She closed her hand around it, in her pocket. She walked back to the house. She did not tell anyone, not even Martha, about the key. It was her secret. For the next few days, Mary searched for the door. She walked along the wall every day. She looked at every bit of it. She pulled at the ivy, very carefully, here and there. It was hard. The ivy was thick. In some places, the ivy was so thick that you could not see the wall at all. There were great curtains of ivy, hanging down like green hair, from the tops of the wall to the ground. The wind blew the ivy sometimes. It made the leaves rustle and shake and move. One afternoon, a strong wind came up. Mary was standing by the wall when the wind blew. A great gust of wind came along. It blew a long curtain of ivy aside, just for a moment. And underneath the ivy, Mary saw something. A wooden door. A small, old wooden door, half hidden in the wall. She gasped. She ran forward. She pulled the ivy aside. There it was. A door. An old wooden door, with a small round metal knob and a small keyhole below the knob. Mary's heart was beating so fast she could feel it. She reached into her pocket. She took out the key. She put the key into the keyhole. It fit. She turned it. It was hard. The lock was old and rusty. She had to use both hands, but slowly, with a great creaking sound, the lock turned. The door was unlocked. Mary stood there for a moment with her hand on the doorknob. She was breathing very fast. She did not know what she would find on the other side. She turned the knob. She pushed the door very gently. It opened, and Mary Lennox, the cross little Mem Sahib from India, stepped into the most magical place she had ever seen. She stepped inside. She closed the door behind her. She stood with her back against the door, and she looked. She was inside a garden that had been left alone for 10 years. The garden was small. It was square, perhaps 30 paces across on each side. It was surrounded by the high stone walls she had seen from outside. The walls, from the inside, were also covered in ivy. The ivy was thick and dark green, and it climbed all the way to the top. In the middle of the garden, there were trees. Old, twisted, beautiful trees. There were many of them. Some were tall, some were short. They were all bare of leaves now. It was almost winter, but their branches were intertwined with each other, twisting and curling, like the branches were holding hands. The branches were covered with something. Mary walked closer. She looked. There were long, thin, brown things winding around the branches, climbing up the trees, wrapping around them, twisting in great long ropes all over everything. She did not know, at first, what these were. Then she remembered something Ben Weatherstaff had said about the roses he kept in another garden. "They are roses," she whispered. These were old rose bushes. Climbing rose bushes. They had grown for 10 years without anyone to prune them. They had grown wild. They had climbed everywhere. They had wrapped themselves around every tree and along every wall and across every old stone path until the whole garden was a sleeping tangle of brown rose branches. In the summer, Mary thought, this would be the most beautiful place in the world. In the summer, the roses would bloom. There would be 1,000 roses blooming all together on these tangled branches. But now, in winter, the garden was sleeping. The branches were brown. The grass was brown. The flower beds, which Mary could see in places, were empty and brown. It looked dead. But Mary, who had never thought about plants very much in her life, found that she did not really think it was dead. It just looked like it was sleeping. It looked like it was waiting for something. For spring, perhaps? Or perhaps, just perhaps, for her. She walked slowly through the garden. Her shoes crunched on the dry old leaves. She walked under the twisted brown rose branches. She walked past a small stone bench. She walked to the very center of the garden, where there was a small open space. She turned around slowly. She looked at everything. It was so quiet here. The walls were so high that the wind from the moor did not reach inside. The garden was perfectly still. There was no sound, except for the small twittering of one bird, perched somewhere high in one of the trees. It was the robin. He had followed her inside. He sat in the tree and looked down at her and chirped, as if to say, "Well, here you are. What do you think?" Mary thought. She thought, for the first time in her life, about a thing that was bigger than her own crossness. She thought, "This garden has been sleeping for 10 years. Nobody has been here. Nobody has watered it. Nobody has pulled out the weeds. Nobody has cared." She thought, "I could come here. I could be the one who comes here. I could pull out the weeds. I could clear away the dead leaves. I could try to wake the garden up." The thought was a new thought for Mary. She had never, in all her 9 years, thought about doing anything for any reason except for her own amusement. She had never thought about helping anything. She had never thought about waking anything up. But this little garden, sleeping under its tangle of old roses, made her want to. It made her want to. She did not know why. She bent down. She picked up a single dead leaf, and she held it in her hand. The leaf was dry. It was paper thin. It had been on the ground for a long time. She put it carefully in her pocket. She would keep it, she decided, as her first small piece of this place, this new place, this secret place. She walked back to the door. She slipped out. She locked the door behind her. She pulled the ivy back over it so that no one would see. She walked back to the house. She did not tell anyone. The robin, sitting on the wall, watched her go. He hopped along the wall for a little while. Then he flew away to tell, perhaps, the other birds that something had happened that they had not seen for 10 years. A child had come into the sleeping garden. The garden was, very faintly, very slowly, beginning to wake. Mary went back to the garden every day. Sometimes she stayed only for a few minutes. Sometimes she stayed for hours. She did not know what to do at first. She just walked around. She looked at things. She sat on the stone bench. She listened to the robin. But after a few days, she started to do small things. She pulled out a handful of dead grass. She picked up some old fallen leaves and put them in a pile. She found in the dirt the small green shoots of something pushing up. She did not know what it was, but she cleared the dead leaves away from around it so it could see the sun. She was helping the garden a little. She did not know much about gardens, but she was beginning to try. She did not have any tools. She used her hands. Her hands, which had always been small and yellow and thin, started to get a little dirty. Her fingernails got dirt under them. Her hands started to smell, faintly, of cold black earth. She liked it. She had never liked dirt before. In India, dirt had been a thing she had been kept away from. The servants had washed her hands all the time. She had never been allowed to touch the earth. But this earth, this English earth, was different. It was cold. It was dark. It smelled of something alive. Mary's hands started to look like the hands of a real little girl. Not a tidy little memsahib, a real little girl who played in the dirt. She thought about asking Martha for a small spade, a small set of garden tools, so she could dig. But she did not know how to ask without giving away her secret. She thought about it for a long time. Then she thought of another idea. Martha had told her, the first morning, about her brother Dickon. Dickon, who was 12. Dickon, who lived with their mother and the 11 other children in a small cottage on the moor. Martha had said that Dickon was a strange boy. He could speak to animals, she had said. Wild animals came right up to him. Foxes, birds, squirrels. The animals were not afraid of him. Martha had said Dickon loved gardens. He loved plants. He knew the name of every wild flower on the moor. Mary thought about Dickon. She had never met him. She did not know if she would like him, but she needed help with the garden, and if anyone could help her, perhaps it was Dickon. She asked Martha one morning about Dickon. She tried to sound as if she was not very interested, but her voice gave her away. She was interested. Martha was pleased. Our Dickon," said Martha. "Thou would like our Dickon, miss. Everyone likes our Dickon. The animals like him, the plants like him, even the wind on the moor likes him. He whistles and the wind whistles back." "Could he come here?" Mary asked. "Could he come to Misselthwaite?" Martha thought. "Aye," she said. "He could come. On his next day off, he could come and visit thee." "Would thou like that?" "Yes," said Mary. She tried not to sound too eager, but Martha saw. Martha saw that the cross little girl from India, who had not seemed to like anyone in the world, was excited to meet her brother. Martha smiled. She kept the smile to herself, but she smiled. She wrote a letter to her mother that night after her day's work was done. She asked her mother to send Dickon, on his next free day, to come and visit Miss Mary at the manor. She asked also if Dickon could bring some small things with him, a small spade if there was one, a small hoe, some small packets of seeds from the village shop. Mary, she explained, had taken an interest in gardening. The miss had asked, very politely, for these things. Could mother send them along? Mary had not asked very politely. Mary had not asked at all. Martha was making it up. She knew that Mary would want these things. She knew that Mary did not, yet, know how to ask politely. So Martha asked for her. This was a kindness Mary did not know about. Mary did not know that Martha had decided to be her friend, but Martha had. A few days later, a small letter arrived for Mary from Martha's mother. It said, "Dear little miss, I send thee a pleasant good morning, and Dickon will come to thee on Saturday. He will bring his small spade and his small hoe and 3 packets of seeds. He has chosen the seeds himself. He thinks thou will like them. Be a good lass, and play in the air, and eat the porridge. The mother loves thee already, and so do I. Susan Sowerby." Mary read the letter. She read it 3 times. She read it again. The mother loves thee already. She did not, of course, have a mother. Her mother was dead. But Martha's mother, whom Mary had never met, had written that she loved Mary. Loved her. Already. The words went into Mary's small chest, and they sat there, and they made a small, warm place that had not been there before. Mary had never in her life been told by anyone that they loved her. Not by her mother. Not by her father. Not by her ayah. Not by anyone. She had not known before that it could feel like this. She did not know that this small, warm place in her small chest was the very beginning of something enormous. She just knew that she felt, for the first time, that she might be a little bit all right. She put the letter very carefully under her pillow. She slept with it there. That night, she slept very well. Saturday came. Mary woke up early. She got dressed by herself in her warm clothes. She ate her porridge. She drank her milk. She put on her coat and her cap, and she went outside. She walked through the gardens. She came to the long ivy-covered wall. She stopped. She listened. She heard something. A small, sweet sound. A whistle. A boy was whistling. The whistle was clear and high and full of small twists, like the song of a bird. Mary walked along the wall. She came around a corner, and she saw him. Dickon. He was sitting on the low stone wall at the edge of the gardens where the moor began. He was a slim, healthy-looking boy, 12 years old. He had a round, rosy face. He had bright blue eyes. He had a thick mop of curly red hair. He was sitting very still. On his shoulder there was a squirrel. On his knee there was a small wild bird. And at his feet, looking up at him with bright eyes, were 2 little rabbits. Mary stopped. She stared. She had heard of magical things in books, princes who could turn into birds, witches who could speak to cats. She had heard of these things, but she had not believed them. But here, on this gray Yorkshire morning, was a small boy with a squirrel on his shoulder and a bird on his knee and 2 rabbits at his feet. The boy was whistling. The animals were listening. Dickon saw Mary. He stopped whistling. He smiled. His smile was the widest, most warming smile Mary had ever seen. It was like the sun coming out from behind a cloud. "Don't move," he said softly. "Don't move quick, or thou'll scare them. Come slow, miss." Slow as a snail, Mary, for once in her life, did exactly as she was told. She walked very slowly toward Dickon. The animals did not run. They saw her, but they did not run. They knew, somehow, that this small girl walking slowly toward them was not a danger. She stopped, a few paces away from Dickon. The squirrel looked at her. The bird looked at her. The rabbits looked at her. She did not know what to do. "Sit down, miss," said Dickon. "Sit down on the wall. Slow." Mary sat down, on the same low stone wall where Dickon was sitting. She held very still. Dickon began to whistle again, very softly. The bird on his knee hopped, just a little. After a long moment, one of the rabbits hopped, very slowly, toward Mary. It came and sat at her feet. It looked up at her with bright black eyes. Mary's heart was beating very fast. She reached out her hand, slowly. The rabbit did not run. She touched its soft brown fur. The rabbit closed its eyes. It seemed to enjoy being touched. Mary felt, in her chest, something rise up that she had never felt before. It was joy. She had never known what joy felt like. It was as if a small, warm bird had opened its wings inside her chest, as if her whole self was being lifted, just a little, off the ground. She stroked the rabbit gently. The rabbit hopped, eventually, away. The bird flew off. The squirrel ran up a tree. Dickon turned to Mary. "The must be Miss Mary," he said. "Our Martha has told me about thee." "I am Mary," said Mary, "and you are Dickon." "Aye, that's right." He pulled a small bundle from beside him on the wall. He opened it. Inside, there was a small spade, a small hoe, a small rake, all sized for a child. They had been used. They were old, but they were good tools. There were also 3 small packets of seeds. Mary saw the names, written on the packets in careful child's handwriting: mignonette, poppies, larkspur. "These are for thee," said Dickon. "Mother said thou wanted to make a garden." "Yes," said Mary. She did not quite know how to say the next thing, but Dickon had a kind face, and he had a squirrel that liked him. And the rabbits had come up to her, just now, when she sat very still. She decided to tell him. She decided to trust him. She had not, in her life, trusted anyone before, but she trusted Dickon. "Dickon," she said quietly, "if I tell you a secret, will you keep it? A real secret?" Dickon's bright blue eyes looked at her. He nodded. "Aye," he said simply. "I keep all the fox's secrets, and all the birds' secrets, and the secrets of all the wild things on the moor. I can keep that secret too." So Mary told him. She told him about the locked garden, about the wall, about the key, about the door, about the sleeping garden with its tangle of old rose branches, and its silent walls, and its small empty flower beds. Dickon listened. He did not interrupt. When Mary finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Then he said in a soft, wondering voice, The garden that has been locked up for 10 years. I have heard about that garden since I was a little lad. The mistress's garden, Mrs. Craven's garden, the one she made all herself when she was newly married. Miss, thou hast found it. Will you come?" Mary asked. "Will you come and see it? Will you help me?" "Of course I will come, miss," said Dickon. "Of course I will help. There is nothing in the world I would rather do." Mary stood up. She led Dickon through the gardens to the long ivy-covered wall. She pulled the ivy aside. She put the key in the lock. She opened the door. She stepped inside, and Dickon stepped in after her. Dickon stood in the center of the garden. He looked at everything. He turned slowly, in a great slow circle, looking at the trees and the walls and the tangled rose branches. His face changed. His eyes grew brighter, brighter. His smile grew wider, wider. He whispered. Miss, it is a beautiful place. It is a strange, beautiful place. He walked over to one of the rose bushes. He held the brown branches in his hands. He turned them over, gently. He scraped, gently, with his thumb, at the wood of the branch. Look, he said. Look here, miss. Mary came over. She looked at the place he was showing her. Underneath the old brown bark, there was a tiny patch of green. Sees that green? Said Dickon. That means it is alive. The wood is not dead. It is just sleeping. If we cut away the dead bits and let the air in and tend to it a little, it will bloom. Aye, it will bloom. Mary stared. Are all the roses alive? She asked. Dickon walked from tree to tree. He bent the branches. He scraped at the bark. Most of them are alive, he said finally. Some are dead, aye, but most. They have been sleeping. Thou hast woken them up just by coming in. They will start to come back now. We will help them. Mary's heart was so full she could not speak. The garden was alive. It was not dead. It had only been sleeping. And she, Mary Lennox, the cross little Mem Sahib, had been the one to come and find it. She and Dickon spent the rest of that day in the garden. They cleared away the old leaves. They cut away the dead branches. They pulled the long grass. They found, in the dirt, the green tips of crocuses and snowdrops and small bulbs that had been pushing their way up year after year with no one to see them. They worked side by side. They did not talk much. The work itself was enough. When the sun began to set, they sat on the small stone bench together. Mary's hands were dirty. Her dress was dirty. Her cheeks were pink from the work. She was tired, but she felt, in her small chest, that warm place growing. She felt happy. For the first time in her life, she felt happy. Will they come back tomorrow, Dickon? She asked. No, miss, I have to work tomorrow, but I will come on my next day off. And before that, every day, thou can come yourself. Thou knowst what to do now. Pull weeds, clear leaves, talk to the plants. They like to be talked to. Talk to them? Said Mary. Really? Aye, said Dickon. Plants like to know they are not alone. Sing to them, whisper to them, tell them thou is glad they are here. They will hear thee. They will grow because of it. Mary did not know whether to believe him, but she would try. Dickon stood up. He picked up his tools. He tucked them under his arm. He looked at her with his bright blue eyes. Miss Mary, he said quietly, I am glad I met thee. Thou hast made a friend in me. For all my life, if thou needs one. He walked out of the garden. He shut the door behind him. He walked away, whistling, across the gardens and out toward the moor. Mary sat for a long time on the bench. She thought about what Dickon had said. Thou hast made a friend in me. For all my life. It was the second time, in her short life, that anyone had said anything like this to her. The first had been Susan Sowerby's letter, with the words, The mother loves thee already. Now it was Dickon. She had been alone for 9 years, and in 1 week she had a mother who loved her and a friend for all her life. She did not understand how this had happened, but she knew it had. She locked the door behind her. She pulled the ivy back over it. She walked back to the house in the soft autumn evening. That night, when Martha put her to bed, Mary did something she had never done before. She reached up and she kissed Martha on the cheek. It was a small kiss, a clumsy kiss, a kiss from a child who had never given a kiss before. But Martha understood. Martha understood completely. Martha hugged her very tight, and her own eyes filled with tears. Miss, Martha said. My dear, good night. Sleep well. Mary climbed into her bed. She fell asleep almost at once. She slept the deepest, sweetest sleep of her life. And outside, on the great wild moor, the wind was still blowing. but it did not sound anymore like a strange voice trying to speak. It sounded now like a friend, telling Mary that everything was going to be all right. The weeks passed. Mary went to the garden every day. The weather grew colder, the wind grew sharper. Some mornings there was frost on the grass. The garden on the outside looked more brown and dead than ever, but Mary knew better. She knew the garden was alive. She knew, underneath the brown surface, things were happening. Roots were growing, slowly, deep in the dark earth. Bulbs were getting ready. Small green shoots were preparing to push up when the right time came. She talked to the plants, the way Dickon had told her. She felt very silly at first. She had never talked to anything that could not answer, but she did it anyway. "Hello, little plants," she would say, kneeling down by the small green tips that were poking up. "I am here. I have come back. I have cleared the leaves away for you. The sun will reach you better now. Grow well, little ones. Please grow well." She felt silly, but after a few days, she stopped feeling silly. It started to feel natural. It started to feel like a real friendship between her and the small sleeping things in the dirt. She started to talk to the rose bushes too. She would stand under their tangled brown branches and she would whisper, "Hello, roses. I am Mary. I am going to take care of you now. Mr. Dickon says you are alive. He says you will bloom in the spring. Please bloom. Please bloom. I want to see what you look like in the spring." The rose branches did not answer. But sometimes, when the wind blew, the branches would rustle, just a little. Mary chose to think that the roses were answering her. She knew that perhaps they were not, but it did not matter. What mattered was that she felt connected to them. She felt, for the first time in her life, that she was a part of something. Not the most important part, just a small, helpful part, helping things to grow. It made her feel calm. It made her feel useful. It made her feel somehow real. Dickon came on his days off. He brought small treasures with him, a new packet of seeds, a small handful of bulbs that his mother had given him from her own garden, a small bottle of milk to drink during their work, a small piece of bread for them to share. He also brought, sometimes, his animal friends. He had a fox, who he had raised from a kit, a small red fox with bright eyes and a fluffy tail. He had a crow who sat on his shoulder. He had a young lamb that he had saved from a freezing morning on the moor. The lamb was almost grown now. It still followed Dickon everywhere. The animals came into the garden with him. They did not run away when Mary came near. They knew Dickon. They trusted Dickon. And because Dickon trusted Mary, they trusted her too. The first time the fox came up and sniffed Mary's hand, Mary almost cried with happiness. "Dickon," she whispered, "he is letting me touch him." "Aye," said Dickon, "he likes thee, miss. He knows thou hast a kind heart." Mary did not know if she had a kind heart. She had never thought of herself as having one, but the fox seemed to think she did, and the rabbits, and the squirrels, and the small bird that perched on Dickon's hat. They all seemed to think she had a kind heart. Mary started to believe them. She started to believe, very slowly, that perhaps, all along, deep under the crossness, she had been a different kind of girl than she had thought. A girl with a kind heart. A girl who could be loved. She had only needed to be in the right place, with the right people, with the right small living things. One night, something strange happened. Mary was sleeping. The house was very quiet. The wind on the moor was blowing hard against the windows. Suddenly, in the middle of the night, Mary woke up. She had heard something. She did not know what. She lay very still in her bed and she listened. The wind was howling outside, but there was something else, something inside the house, a sound, a small, distant sound. It sounded like a child crying. Far away, in some other part of the house, a child was crying. Mary sat up in her bed. She listened harder. Yes, it was a child. The crying was muffled, as if it was coming from behind closed doors, but it was real. Mary's heart began to beat fast. In all the weeks she had lived at Misselthwaite, she had never seen another child in the house. She had thought she was the only child here who was crying. She got out of bed. She wrapped herself in her warm dressing gown. She lit a small candle. She opened her bedroom door very quietly. She stepped out into the long, dark corridor. The crying was louder here. It was definitely coming from somewhere in the house. She started to walk down the corridor. The candle made a small, flickering light. Her shadow was huge on the walls. The house was full of dark, closed doors. She walked very slowly, very carefully, following the sound. She turned a corner. She walked down another corridor. The sound was getting louder. She turned another corner. She came to a long corridor with old tapestries on the walls. She had never been in this part of the house before. At the end of the corridor, there was a door. The crying was coming from behind that door. It was a child's crying, a long, sad, hopeless crying. The kind of crying a child does when they have been crying for a long, long time and no one has come. Mary felt in her chest a strange feeling. She felt sorry. She had not felt sorry for anyone very much in her whole life. But she felt sorry for this child, whoever it was, crying alone in the great old house in the middle of the night. She walked to the door. She put her hand on the doorknob. She turned it. The door opened. She stepped inside. There was a fire burning in the fireplace. There were soft lamps glowing. The room was beautiful. It was a child's room, but it was rich and elegant. There was a big bed with embroidered curtains. There were toys on shelves. There were paintings on the walls. In the bed, lying back against many pillows, was a small boy. He was thin, very thin. He was pale, with sharp, fine features. His eyes were big and gray. His hair was thick and black. He was crying. He saw Mary come in. He stopped crying. He stared at her. He had clearly never seen another child in his life either. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then the boy said in a strange, sharp voice, "Who are you? Are you a ghost?" "No," said Mary. "Are you?" "No," said the boy. "I am Colin." "I am Mary," said Mary. "Mary Lennox." "Mr. Craven is my uncle." "He is my father," said Colin. Mary stared at him. She had not known that her uncle had a child. Nobody had told her. "Why are you here?" Colin asked. "Why have you come into my room?" "Nobody comes into my room. Nobody is supposed to come in here." "Nobody but the servants and Dr. Craven and Father when he comes home, which is hardly ever." "I heard you crying," said Mary. "I cry every night," said Colin. "I cry because I cannot sleep. I cry because I am ill. I cry because there is nothing else to do." Mary walked closer to the bed. She had never been to the bed of a sick child before. She did not know what to say. But she could see that this small, thin boy in the great big bed was perhaps the loneliest creature she had ever met. He was even lonelier than she had been when she had first come to Misselthwaite, because she had been able to go outside, and he, she could see now, had not been outside in a very long time. She sat down on the edge of his bed. "Why are you ill?" she asked. "I have been ill all my life," said Colin. "I was born ill. My mother died when I was born. My father has never wanted to see me. He does not love me. He cannot stand to look at me. I am going to die soon. Dr. Craven says I will die. Everyone says I will die." He said these things in a strange, proud, angry voice. He was used to telling people he was going to die. He had been telling them, perhaps, his whole life. Mary listened. She thought. She did not know much about being ill, but she did know something about being alone. She did know something about being unloved. She did know something about being cross and proud and difficult, because you did not know what else to be. "What is wrong with you?" she asked. "What is the illness?" "I have a weak back," said Colin. "It might be becoming a hunched back. There is a lump on my back. I can feel it. I am going to grow up to be a hunchback, if I grow up at all." "Has the doctor seen the lump?" The doctor says he cannot feel it, but I can. I know it is there. Mary tilted her head. Perhaps it is not there, she said. Perhaps you only think it is there. Colin's face flushed. He was angry suddenly. You do not know anything, he said. You are just a stupid girl. You do not know anything about being ill. Go away. Go away. But Mary did not go away. She was used to people being cross. She had been cross herself for most of her life. A cross person did not frighten her. She just sat on the edge of the bed. She looked at him. I do not want to fight with you, she said calmly. I just wanted to know who was crying. Colin looked at her. His angry face slowly softened. How did you come here? He asked, after a long moment. How did you find my room? I followed the crying. Are you not afraid of the dark house? No, said Mary. Why should I be? Colin looked at her for a long time. He had never met anyone like her. The servants were always quiet and frightened around him. The doctor was busy and worried. His father, on the rare times he came, looked sad and turned away. Nobody had ever come in the middle of the night just because they heard him crying. I am glad you came, Colin said, in a smaller voice. I do not want you to go. I will stay for a little while, said Mary. But I cannot stay all night. I have to go back to my own bed. Stay until I fall asleep. All right. Mary sat on the edge of his bed. She did not know what to do. She did not know how to comfort anyone. She did the only thing she could think of. She started talking. She told Colin about the moor, about the wind, about the sky, about Ben Weatherstaff and his robin, about Martha, about Dickon, and the rabbits and the lamb. She told him about everything she had seen in the past weeks in the great old gardens of Misselthwaite. She did not tell him about the secret garden. That was her secret, and it was Dickon's secret. She did not, yet, want to share it, but she told him about everything else. Colin listened. His gray eyes grew bigger and bigger. He had never heard such things. He had never seen the moor. He had never seen a fox. He had never seen a sky outside of a window. He had been ill all his life. He had lived in this room, in this bed, for as long as he could remember. He had been carried sometimes to other rooms, but never outside. He was afraid of outside. He was afraid he would catch a cold and die. He was afraid the wind would hurt him. He was afraid of everything. But the way Mary talked about the wind and the moor and the foxes made him feel something he had not felt for a long time. He felt curious. He felt curious about something. He had not felt curious about anything for years. Mary talked for a long time. Slowly, Colin's eyelids grew heavy. Slowly, his breathing grew deep and slow. Slowly, he fell asleep. Mary sat on the edge of his bed and watched him sleep. He looked, in his sleep, like a little child. Just a little child. Not a sick child, just a child. Mary slipped quietly off the bed. She picked up her candle. She walked to the door. She turned back. She looked at him. One more time. He was sleeping peacefully. She walked out. She closed the door softly behind her. She walked back, through all the long dark corridors, to her own room. She got into her own bed. She thought, before she fell asleep, about the small, thin boy with the great gray eyes. She thought about how lonely he must be. She thought about how she would come back. She thought, perhaps, that she would come back tomorrow night too. She fell asleep with this thought. The next morning, Martha came to wake Mary up. Mary, sitting on the edge of her bed, said in a quiet voice, Martha, I want to ask you something. What is it, miss? There is a boy in this house, is there not? A boy called Colin, Mr. Craven's son? Martha's face went pale. She stared at Mary. How does the know that? She whispered. I found him last night. I heard him crying. I went to his room. I spoke with him. Martha sat down. She put her hands over her face. Miss. Oh dear. We are not supposed to talk about Master Colin. He is the great secret of the house. The master does not want anyone to know about him. He has forbidden us all to mention him. Oh dear. Why? said Mary. Why is it a secret? Martha took her hands away. She looked at Mary very seriously. Miss, listen. Master Colin, he is the son of the master and mistress. The mistress died when he was born. The master could not bear to look at the baby because the baby reminded him of his lost wife, so the master left. He travels all over the world to forget. He cannot bear to be home. And Master Colin, he has been ill all his life. He has been in his rooms. He has been with doctors, with nurses, with servants. He has been crying and screaming and being difficult. He is a hard child to look after. They say he will not live to grow up. They say he is dying. They say his back is bad, and he will be a hunchback, and his heart is weak, so they have kept him hidden. They do not want him to see other children. They do not want other children to see him. The master cannot stand to be reminded that his son is in some way broken, so the secret is kept. The household is forbidden to speak of him. Mary listened to all this. She listened very carefully. When Martha was done, Mary said, "He told me he is going to die." "He may, miss. He may. The doctor says he is very weak. Some days he cannot get out of bed at all. Some days he screams in pain. Other days he is just lying there, weak as a kitten." "Has he ever been outside?" "No, miss. Not really. He is afraid of the air. They have told him so many times he might catch a chill and die. He is afraid. He will not let them take him outside, even when the doctor says it might be good for him. He says he wants to stay in his room. He wants to stay where it is safe." Mary thought. She thought in a clear and certain way, the kind of thought she had been thinking more and more since she had come to Misselthwaite. She thought, this boy is being killed by being kept in his room. He is not dying of an illness. He is dying of being alone. He is dying of not seeing the sky. He is dying of being told every day that he is going to die. She did not say this to Martha, but she knew it. She had known it from the first moment she had seen him. She had known because she had been the same way only a few months ago. She had been a small, cross-dying thing in India, dying of being alone, dying of being unloved. And the moor, and the gardens, and the secret place, and Dickon had brought her back to life. She knew, with all of her small, fierce heart, that the same thing could happen to Colin. She knew it. She would help. That night, Mary went back to Colin's room. She walked by herself through the long, dark corridors. She opened the door. She slipped inside. Colin was sitting up in bed. He was reading a book. He looked up when Mary came. His face brightened. "You came back," he said. "I thought you would not come back. I thought you were a dream." "I am not a dream," said Mary. "I have come back." She walked over to his bed. She climbed up. She sat at the foot of it. They talked that night for a long time. Mary told him more about the gardens. Colin asked her questions. He had so many questions. He had never been outside. He had never been on the moor. He had never seen a rabbit, or a fox, or a robin. Mary answered all the questions she could. She found that she liked answering them. She found that she liked being the person who knew things, while Colin was the one who did not. It was a new feeling. She had always been the small, ignorant girl, while everyone around her knew more than she did. But here, with Colin, she was the one who knew, and Colin listened. He listened the way she had once listened, that first day on the moor, when everything had been new and strange. Mary realized something. Colin was just like she had been. He was angry and cross and proud and difficult. He was unloved. But underneath all of that, he was a small, lonely person waiting to be brought back to life, just like she had been. She thought, perhaps, that if anyone could understand him, it was her. After a long time of talking, Colin yawned. "I am sleepy," he said. "That is strange. I am usually not sleepy at night. I usually lie awake for hours, but I am sleepy now." "It is because you have been talking," said Mary. "When you talk, you forget to be cross. When you forget to be cross, you can sleep." Is that true? It worked for me, said Mary. Colin lay down. He pulled his blanket up. Will you come every night? He asked. I will come every night that I can, said Mary. Good, said Colin. Good night, Mary. Good night, Colin. Mary stayed until he fell asleep. Then she went back to her own room. She kept her promise. She came almost every night. They talked. They told each other things. They became friends. Colin had never had a friend before. Mary had never had one either. Until Dickon. Now she had two. She was getting rich in friends. She had been so poor in friends before. So poor. But that was changing now. That was changing. The winter began to give way to spring. The wind on the moor was still cold. But sometimes, in the middle of a cold day, there would be a small, warm patch of sunshine. The sun would come out from behind the gray clouds, and it would shine on the brown grass, and you could feel, just for a moment, that warm days were coming. In the secret garden, things began to happen. The crocuses came up first. Small yellow crocuses, small purple crocuses, small white crocuses that opened in the sun and closed at night. The snowdrops came next, small white snowdrops, hanging their heads like shy little bells. Then the daffodils started to push up. Their long green leaves came first. Then the buds, swelling on the tops of the leaves. Mary and Dickon worked in the garden almost every day. Mary went after breakfast. Dickon came when he could. The garden was waking up. The roses, which had looked so brown and dead all winter, started to show small red leaves, then green leaves, then small leaf buds, all along their tangled branches. Mary's hands were rough from the work now. Her cheeks were pink. Her hair was thicker. She had gained weight. She was, although she did not know it, becoming a different child. The cross little Memsahib was gone. In her place was a sturdy, healthy, happy little girl who knew the names of plants and could dig a hole in the dirt and could whistle to a robin. Martha noticed. Miss, Martha said one morning, brushing Mary's hair. Thou hast grown so, thou hast filled out, the cheeks have gone all pink. I can hardly recognize thee from the queer little thing who came to us in the autumn. Mary smiled. She had become someone who smiled now. It is the moor, she said. It is the gardens. Martha smiled too. Aye, she said. It is the moor. But Mary was also thinking, secretly, that it was the secret garden too, and it was Dickon, and it was Colin. She had a busy life now. She woke early. She had breakfast. She went out to the garden. She worked there for hours. She had her lunch. She went back to the garden. She came in for tea. She visited Colin in the afternoon, when the visits were allowed. She had supper. She went back to Colin's room at night. She did not have a single empty hour anymore. She was happy. But there was one thing missing. Colin had not seen the garden. Colin had not seen anything. He was still in his bed. He was still convinced he was dying. He was still afraid of the outside. Mary wanted, more than anything, to bring Colin to the garden, but she did not know how. He was so afraid, and he was so weak. He could barely walk a few steps before getting tired. She talked about it with Dickon. Dickon thought for a long time. We must bring him to the garden, Dickon said finally. He needs the air. He needs the sun. He needs to see the green growing things. It is the only thing that will save him. He is afraid, said Mary. He is afraid of the wind. He is afraid of catching a cold. He has been told all his life that he will die if he goes outside. Then we will have to show him that it is not so. We will have to make him see with his own eyes. How? Dickon thought again. Tha must keep visiting him. Tha must tell him about the garden, about all of it. Tha must make him want to see it. Tha must make the wanting bigger than the fear. Once the wanting is bigger, he will come. But how will we get him there? He cannot walk that far. His wheelchair, said Dickon. He has a wheelchair. I have heard that he uses when they push him through the rooms. We will get him a stronger one. We will push him out in the wheelchair. We will be very careful. We will pick a warm day. We will wrap him up. He will be safe. He will see the garden. The garden will do the rest. Mary nodded. This was the plan. That night, she went to Colin's room. She sat on the foot of his bed. She looked at him with serious eyes. "Colin," she said, "I want to tell you a secret." "What is it?" "There is a garden, a secret garden. It has been locked up for 10 years. I found the key. I found the door. I have been going there every day. Dickon comes too. We are bringing it back to life. The roses are coming back. The flowers are starting to bloom. Soon, when spring comes properly, it will be the most beautiful place you have ever seen." Colin sat up. His eyes were wide. "A secret garden?" "Yes." "In our gardens?" "Here?" "Yes." "Whose was it?" "It was your mother's, I think," said Mary quietly. "Mrs. Craven's. She made it before she died. And when she died, your father locked it up because he could not bear to go in it without her." Colin was silent for a long time. His eyes filled with tears. "My mother's garden," he whispered. "Yes. And you have been going there. You have been bringing it back to life." "Yes." "Why have you not told me before?" "I was afraid you might tell. I did not want anyone to know. It is too special. It is too secret. I would not have told. I would never tell. I know that now." Colin was quiet again. Then he said, in a voice that was different than Mary had ever heard him use, "Mary, I want to see it. I want to see my mother's garden. I want to see what you and Dickon have made." Mary's heart leapt. "You will see it. Soon. When spring comes. When it is warm enough. How will I get there? I cannot walk that far. Dickon will get you a wheelchair, a strong one. We will push you. We will take you through the gardens. We will take you in through the door. You will see everything." Colin was looking at her with shining eyes. Will I really? Will I really see it?" "Yes." Colin sat back against his pillows. He took a deep breath. The deepest breath Mary had ever seen him take. "Then I want to live until then," he said. "I have wanted to die for a long time, but now I want to live until I see the garden. Will the garden wait for me?" "The garden is waiting for you, Colin. The garden has always been waiting for you. It is your mother's garden. It is waiting for her son." Colin closed his eyes. He smiled. He was not crying anymore. He had stopped crying weeks ago, since Mary had started coming to his room. But this smile, that night, was different. It was the smile of someone who had decided to live. It was the most beautiful smile Mary had ever seen. The spring came. It came slowly at first. Then, all at once, in a great rush of green and color, it came. The grass turned green. The trees put on their leaves. The flowers came up in great waves. The moor, which had been brown and dark all winter, suddenly turned soft and golden and pink, with new heather and new gorse and 1,000 new wildflowers. In the secret garden, the change was magical. The crocuses had gone. The daffodils had bloomed and faded. Now the tulips were blooming. Red tulips, yellow tulips, striped tulips, pink tulips. The rose bushes were covered in green leaves. The leaves trembled in the soft, warm wind. The grass under their feet was thick and soft. There were bluebells everywhere. There were forget-me-nots. There were small, white star-shaped flowers that Dickon called primroses. The garden was alive. It was so alive that you could hardly believe it had ever been sleeping. Now was the time. Mary and Dickon planned it carefully. They picked a warm, sunny day. There was no wind that day. The sky was clear. Dickon brought a strong wheelchair. He had borrowed it from a kind neighbor. It was the kind of wheelchair you could push over rough ground. They told Colin's nurse that they would be taking Colin out for an hour. The nurse looked surprised. She had been told many times by Colin himself that he never wanted to go outside. "I want to go," Colin said firmly. "I want to go today." With Mary and Dickon, the nurse, who was glad to have an hour to herself, let them go. She did not know, of course, that the hour would change everything. Mary and Dickon wrapped Colin in warm blankets. They put him gently in the wheelchair. They pushed him out of the house. Out of the house! Out into the open air! Colin had not been outside in many years. The sun was warm on his face. The air was full of the smell of grass and flowers and dirt. He closed his eyes. He turned his face up to the sun. He took a deep, deep breath. Mary watched him. She saw his face change. The pinched, white, frightened look that he had worn all his life was slowly leaving him. In its place, a soft pink color was coming into his cheeks. His gray eyes, when he opened them, looked brighter. He looked at Mary. "Oh," he said. "Oh, Mary, the air. It is so soft." "Yes," she said quietly. Dickon pushed the chair, very slowly, across the gardens. They went down the wide gravel paths. They went through the stone arches. They passed the lawns and the pond and the small fountain. Colin looked at everything. He had not seen any of it for years. He had not been carried this far for as long as he could remember. He saw the great old trees. He saw the wide blue sky. He saw a bird flying high above them, calling. His eyes filled with tears. "Mary," he whispered, "I have been missing this. I have been missing all of this. I did not know." "You will see more," said Mary. "Today, you will see the garden." They came to the long, ivy-covered wall. Mary went to the place where the door was hidden. She pulled the ivy aside. Colin saw the door. His eyes grew wide. "That is it?" he whispered. "That is the door to the secret garden?" "Yes." Mary put the key in the lock. She turned it. The door creaked open. She pushed it wide. Dickon, very carefully, pushed Colin's wheelchair through the door, and Colin saw the garden. He saw it all. The roses, just beginning to bloom. The tulips, in their bright colors. The grass, soft and thick. The blue forget-me-nots, like a small blue sky on the ground. The old stone bench, the twisted trees, the walls, covered in ivy, holding it all together. Like the walls were the arms of someone who loved this place, holding it safe from the world outside. Colin sat in his chair. He did not move. He did not speak. He just looked. Tears were running down his face. He was not crying exactly. He was just looking and weeping. The weeping of someone who has been hungry for beauty for too long and has suddenly been given a great feast. Mary and Dickon stood very still. They did not say anything. They let him look. After a long, long time, Colin spoke. "It is the most beautiful place I have ever seen," he whispered. "It is the most beautiful place there is." "Yes," said Mary. "This was my mother's garden." "Yes." She made it. She walked here. She sat on that bench. She touched these roses. "Yes." And then she died. And no one came here for 10 years. "Until I came," said Mary. "Until you came." Colin closed his eyes. He was quiet for a long time. Then he said, "Mary, I am going to get well now. I am going to live. I am going to grow up. I am going to walk in this garden on my own 2 feet. I am going to be a man in this garden. I promise you. I promise." Mary did not say anything, but she came over to him. She took his hand. She held it. It was the first time she had touched him. He was so thin. His hand was so small, but his hand held hers tight. "I promise too," she said quietly. "I promise to help you every day for as long as it takes." Dickon, watching them, smiled his great, wide, warm smile. He did not say anything either, but he came over. He put his strong young hand on top of their hands. The 3 of them stood there, in the middle of the garden, with their hands joined. It was the moment, perhaps, when everything changed. It was the moment when the magic of the garden became real. The magic that had always been there, in the green growing things, in the warm sun, in the soft air, in the love that the garden had been built with all those years ago by a woman who had since died. The magic was real. It was working. It was waking up the lonely boy, just as it had woken up the lonely girl, just as it had been waiting for both of them for 10 long years. The garden had been waiting, and the garden was patient. That spring and summer were the most beautiful that anyone at Misselthwaite had ever seen. Colin came to the garden every day. At first, he sat in his wheelchair. He watched Mary and Dickon work. He listened to the birds. He looked at the flowers. Then he started to do small things himself. He would hold a tool. He would pull a small weed while sitting in the chair. Then, one day, he wanted to try standing. Mary and Dickon helped him. They each took one of his arms. They lifted him out of his chair. He stood. He stood in the secret garden on his own 2 feet. He was shaky. His legs were so weak from being in bed for so long, but he stood. He stood for a whole minute before they had to help him sit down again. The next day, he stood for 2 minutes. The day after, 3. His back, which he had thought was hunched and broken, was straight. There had never been anything wrong with his back. He had only believed there was. The doctor had told them all along that there was nothing wrong with his back. But Colin had not believed the doctor. He believed now. He believed because he could feel his own back. He could feel that it was straight. He could feel his own body slowly becoming strong. The garden was healing him. The fresh air was healing him. The work, even the small bit of work he could do, was healing him. But most of all, the love was healing him. The love of Mary, who came to him every day and pushed his chair and brought him into the garden. The love of Dickon, who told him everything about plants and animals and the magic of growing things. The love of Susan Sowerby, Dickon's mother, who sent baskets of fresh bread and milk and apples for the children, and who had said in another letter, "Tell the little Master Colin that his mother would have loved that garden. She would have loved that he is in it." The love was healing him. By the middle of summer, Colin could walk. He could walk all the way around the garden without help. He could even run, a little, on the soft grass. He could laugh. He laughed a lot now. He had a beautiful laugh. A laugh that he had never used before. The whole garden seemed to laugh with him. The roses were in full bloom. There were hundreds of roses blooming on the great climbing branches, just as Dickon had said they would. There were pink roses and white roses and red roses and yellow roses. The whole garden smelled of roses. The birds had built nests in the trees. The bees were busy in the flowers. There were butterflies, hundreds of butterflies, white and yellow and orange, dancing through the air. It was the most magical place in the world, and Colin was the king of it. He had decided he was the king of the garden. He had told Mary and Dickon so. Mary had laughed. "And what am I?" she had asked. "You are the queen," Colin had said. "And what is Dickon?" "Dickon is the prime minister. He knows about all the things." Dickon had laughed his great warm laugh. "That is right," he had said. "I am the prime minister of the garden." The 3 of them spent every day together, all summer. They were not just friends now. They were something more. They were a kind of family. A small, strange family made up of 3 children who had each in their own way been alone for too long. There is one more thing to tell you, my friend. One more thing. While Colin was getting well, while Mary was getting strong, while the secret garden was blooming, Mr. Archibald Craven was on the other side of the world. Mr. Craven had been traveling for almost a year. He had been trying to forget his dead wife. He had been trying to forget his sad son. He had been trying to forget Misselthwaite Manor and all the empty rooms and all the memories, but he could not forget. One warm summer evening, he was sitting in the gardens of a great Austrian valley, in a hotel by a lake. He was alone. He was looking at the sunset. A strange feeling came over him. He felt, very strongly, that he should go home. He could not say why. He just felt that he should. He felt that someone, somewhere, was calling for him. He did not understand it. But he had learned, in his many years of grief, to listen to feelings he did not understand. He packed his bags. He took the next train. He traveled for many days. He came, at last, back to England. He came, at last, back to Yorkshire. He came, at last, back to Misselthwaite Manor. He arrived on a warm summer afternoon. The house was quiet. The servants had not expected him. They were surprised. He asked where Colin was. The nurse, looking very confused, said, "He is in the garden, sir. He goes out every day now with Miss Mary and the gardener's lad." Mr. Craven was very surprised. He walked out into the gardens. He walked through the paths. He walked under the great trees. He walked along the lawns. He came, eventually, to the long ivy-covered wall, the wall of his wife's garden. He had not been here for 10 years. He stood, looking at the wall, with all the old grief rising up in him. He thought he heard, on the other side of the wall, a sound. He thought he heard children's voices. He thought he heard laughter. That could not be right. His wife's garden was locked. It had been locked for 10 years, but the voices were definitely coming from inside. He walked along the wall. He came to a place where the ivy was loose. He pulled it aside. There was the door. The door had been unlocked. He could see, by the way the ivy hung, that someone had been going in and out of it. He pushed the door open. He stepped inside. He stopped. He could not breathe. The garden was the most beautiful thing he had ever seen. His wife's garden. His wife's garden that had been her great love, that had been their secret place when they were young and in love. The garden was alive. The roses were in bloom. Everything was green and full of color and full of light. And there, in the middle of the garden, running on the soft grass, were 3 children, a boy with red hair who was throwing a ball, a girl with brown hair who was laughing, and a thin, pale boy with black hair who was running, his son who had been a sick child in a bed for 10 years. His son was running on his own 2 feet. Mr. Craven made a small sound. The 3 children stopped. They saw him. The thin, pale boy who was running suddenly stopped. He stood very still. He looked at the tall, dark man standing in the doorway. He recognized him. He had not seen him in a long, long time, but he recognized him. "Father," he whispered. He started walking toward him. He walked on his own 2 feet across the garden. Mr. Craven could not move. He could not speak. He was looking at his son who he had thought was dying, his son who he had thought was a broken, ruined child, his son who he had been too afraid to love because his son reminded him of the wife he had lost. His son was walking. His son was tall. His son was straight. His son was strong. Colin walked up to him. He looked up at his father with great, wide, gray eyes, with his mother's gray eyes. Mr. Craven fell to his knees. He took his son in his arms. He held him. He held him. He had not held his son since the boy was a baby. He held him now, and he wept. He wept the great deep tears of a man who has been holding his grief for 10 years and who suddenly cannot hold it anymore. "My son," he whispered. "My son, my son, my son." "Father," Colin whispered back. "Father, I am well. I am well now. Look at me. Look at me, Father. I am alive. I see, my boy. I see." Mary and Dickon stood very still on the other side of the garden. They watched the father and the son. They did not move. They did not speak. They knew that this was a moment that did not need anyone else in it. This was a moment 10 years overdue. Mr. Craven and Colin stayed there, holding each other for a long, long time. When at last they let each other go, Mr. Craven looked up. He saw Mary. He saw Dickon. He stood up. He walked over to them. He held out his hand to each of them. "Thank you," he said. His voice was hoarse with crying. "I do not know what you have done. I do not understand it. But you have brought my son back to life. You have brought my wife's garden back to life. You have brought me back to life. Thank you. Thank you. With every part of me, thank you." Mary did not know what to say. She had never been thanked like this before. She just nodded. Dickon smiled his great warm smile. "It was the garden, sir," he said quietly. "The garden did it. We just helped." Mr. Craven looked around the garden. He saw the roses. He saw the bluebells. He saw the soft, sweet light. He saw, in his memory, his young wife, standing in the same garden. smiling at him, laughing at something he had said. He felt her here. He felt her in every leaf and every flower and every patch of sun. She had not left after all. She had been here in this garden all along. She had been here waiting for him to come back. She had been here taking care of their son in some way he did not understand. She had been here. The garden was her. The garden was the love she had left behind, the love she had built with her own hands, the love that had grown wild and tangled for 10 years, until the right children had come along to wake it up. Mr. Craven took a deep breath. He looked at his son. His son was smiling. His son was alive. His son was real. "Come, Colin," he said softly. "Come, my boy. Let us walk together in your mother's garden. Show me what you have done. Show me everything." Colin took his father's hand. The two of them walked side by side through the garden. Mary and Dickon stood and watched. The sun was setting. The sky was turning pink and gold. The roses were nodding gently in the soft, warm evening wind. And the garden, which had been so lonely for so long, was at last full again, full of all the love it had been made with, full of laughter, full of life, full, again, of family. That, my dear friend, is the story of the secret garden, of a girl who came from far away, of a boy who lived in a bed, of another boy who knew the language of all wild things, of an old garden that had been sleeping behind a locked door for 10 years, until 3 children came along to wake it up, and of a father who came home just in time. It is an old story, a simple story. But there is something in it that the world has always needed. There is something in it that we always need. The story reminds us of something very small and very true. It reminds us that things that look dead are sometimes only sleeping. It reminds us that things that look broken are sometimes only waiting. It reminds us that gardens can come back to life. Hearts can come back to life. Sad people can come back to life. Sick people can come back to life. All it takes is time and air and sun and someone to come and pull the dead leaves away and let the green tips of new things push their way up into the light. That is all. That is the magic. It is a magic you can do too, my friend. In your own garden, in your own heart, in the heart of someone you love. If you have been feeling, lately, like a brown sleeping thing under a tangle of dead leaves, remember the secret garden. Remember that underneath there is something green, something alive, something waiting. You only have to be patient. You only have to give yourself air and sun and time. You only have to trust that you, like all living things, are made to bloom. You will bloom. I promise you. Sometimes the blooming takes a long time. Sometimes it takes a winter, or 2, or 10. But it always comes. When the right spring arrives. When the right friend comes through the door. When the right small kindness is shown to you, at the right small moment, you will bloom. I promise you. My dear friend, the story is finished. I do not know if you are still listening, or if you have gently fallen asleep somewhere in the middle. I hope you have. I hope you are sleeping deeply right now. I hope your breath is slow and even. I hope your body is relaxed and warm and safe. I hope, in your dreams, you are walking in the secret garden. I hope you can see the roses in full bloom. I hope you can smell the soft, sweet smell of summer flowers. I hope you can feel the warm sun on your face and the soft grass under your bare feet. You are safe there. You are loved there. You are home there in some way that does not depend on where your body is sleeping tonight. I will tell you a small secret before I go. The secret garden is real, not the one in Yorkshire. That was a story. But there is a secret garden in everyone. Inside of you, there is a place that is yours, and only yours. A place where the things you love are. A place where the things that have made you happy live. A place where, no matter what happens to you in the outside world, you can always go back to and rest. You can visit it anytime. You only have to close your eyes. You only have to remember. You can go there now if you have not gone there already. You can go there now. It is a gift you have that you may not have known about. Go there often, my friend. Go there when you are sad. Go there when you are tired. Go there when you are scared. It is yours. It is always yours. One last thing. Before you sleep or before you turn off the screen, please, if you can, tap the little red button at the bottom of your screen, the subscribe button. Just one small tap, gently, like a leaf falling onto soft grass. It is how I will find my way back to you on another quiet night, with another quiet story. When you need a voice in the dark again, and if you can, tap the small heart, the like button, just to say, I am still here. I am still listening. Thank you. I will be here. I will be here whenever you come back. I will be here with stories of children and gardens and small magic things. I will be here like the secret garden behind its quiet ivy-covered door, waiting, patient, full of small living things, growing slowly in the dark until you need them. Then they will bloom for you, I promise. Good night, my dear friend. Good night, brave heart. Good night, sleeping garden. May your dreams be soft. May your sleep be deep. May you wake to a beautiful morning. The garden is always there. The roses are always blooming. The door is always open. For you, always. Good night, good night. Good night. Sleep well, my dear friend. Sleep well.